Hello. So in last video we designed the database. Now in this video we'll try out something related to model and anything around that. Now whenever you, for example, I'm assuming that you are designing this database for the first time. But if you have done that in the past, then everything is good and easy to understand. But if you are doing it for the first time, in that case, now you have designed the database. Now you have to think where to start with. So the most logical thing to start with is there are two parts. One, you design it from the perspective of user. So on home page, what will they see at the start? They'll see sign up and login process. So that means you are starting with the users because they won't be able to see the quizzes at the start, right? So that's the one process that we have. Second is by looking at the database also, you can decide which process I should start. So for example, if I look at this database, it depends upon user ID and question ID. So until and unless we don't have user and question, we cannot create this one. So let's get rid of this one. Now, same goes for this score because user ID and quiz ID, it is dependent on that. Same goes for quiz question mapping because quiz ID and question ID. Great. So we have, and correct answer also we cannot do because it depends upon the question ID, which is part of this. So we have only three options. One is user, second is quizzes, and third is questions. Now, out of these three, technically we know that we can show all the questions, but that's not the best case because uh, viewing quizzes on the home page is much more important, right? So now from that perspective, it's much more clear that quiz is the first thing and second is the users. Great. We can start with quiz part or users part. Because quiz is a bit easy and users, we have to use some special jam or some special methods to make it easier to integrate. We'll do that in next couple of videos. For now, I'll just focus on the quiz and set it up in a very basic way. Okay. My task is pretty simple. On home page, I want to show a list of different quizzes. That's it, with description. That's it. Nothing special, nothing different. Okay. So let's start with that. Okay. Now for that, there are a couple of things to do. First thing is we'll have to create this table, which is quiz. So let's go to our database. Let's go to Tailwind. Let's keep this, go to our code. In code, now we are working with the database. So we'll have to focus on the DB folder. Okay. It doesn't have anything. Okay. This is also a comment. We don't need that. And nothing is there. This is empty technically. So let's start creating something. So first thing we'll do is I'll stop the server, clear. I'll create a database. I'm not sure if it is already exists, but Rails DB create. Okay. What it will do is okay, it already exists. Okay. How does it exist? How does it know about that? Because in config, we have a file called database.yml. Okay. It has basic details like default. You can see the name of the database is quiz app development. Okay. So quiz app development, this is the database. It is using PostgreSQL as an adapter, basically as the database. So all the basic details are already there. Okay, it has its own username, password, and everything has been set. Great. Sorry, not in production, even in development. Okay, in development, I don't think it does have a password. Anything, anyways. So we know that database is there, but it doesn't have any table. So let's start creating that. So for that, we have something called as generators in Rails. Okay. What are generators? They help us generating various types of files. Those files can be models, those files can be controllers, views, anything. Okay. For example, what do you do in general? If you want to create a controller, you right click on this, create a new file, name that, and it will become a part of controller, right? But it might not be the best way because of the Rails framework. In other programming languages, it is the only way in the most cases, but Rails does have some extra advantages over this. So now I can write the exact code here to generate a database for our quiz table. But the better way of doing this is to understand generators. So you don't have to be afraid of typing different commands. First thing that you should do is Rails generator. Okay. By the way, you don't have to write the generator as a full word. You can just write G. Okay. Let's press enter and it will show you all the options that it can generate for you. For example, I wrote this command. After that, you are getting this. What? It has various headings. Usage is heading. This is heading. This is heading. Again, there will be other headings. So, usage. Okay, what is the usage? You can use bin/rails, which is equivalent to Rails that I have written. Generate, and I already mentioned that instead of generate, you can write G. So, Rails, G. Then you have to mention a generator. So, these are all the generators that we have. Okay. These are all the generators. And then you can pass various arguments. Great. Now, let's go to Rails generators. There are various things. And in start or in second video, I think I taught you that model is responsible for connecting with the database. When I was explaining you the MVC framework, I explained you that model is responsible for connecting with the database. So we will have to create model. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll clear this Rails generate model. Let's enter. Again, now it is giving us more details about it. I wrote it Rails generate model. Where was it? Okay, this is the command that I wrote. So after that, they have given me the complete detail. You can read through this in detail to understand each and everything. So for example, they have mentioned that you should write Rails generate model. Then you should write the model name, and then you should mention various fields and their data types. Okay. And if they are index or anything like that. For example, they might have given me an example also. These are various data types that they have mentioned. Basically, you can go in depth of it. Okay. I already know, so I won't go in depth of it. But here are some examples. This is one example, user, pseudo, string, unique. This is one example for model. There is a title, string, album, references. Okay, great. So let's start. We are focused on quiz and it has a title and title should be unique and description. Great. Rails, generate, model, then name, which is quiz. I'll simply write quiz actually. Okay, we'll see if there is any mistake. Rails generate quiz. Do I need to mention ID? No. ID and created at timestamp and updated timestamp. These three things Rails will generate on its own. You don't have to worry about it. So we just have to worry about title and description. Title. What will be the data type of title? We can. Okay, I don't know what our data type. Does it support text or not? So let's quickly see this. We have integer, primary key, decimal, float, boolean, string, and text. So I'll use text. Clear. Rails generate model, quiz, title, text, and it should be unique. This is the first column. Quiz is our table, this entire thing. In that, this title is the first column, which is this. Then description is the second column. So description, text. Okay. Let's enter. Could not generate field title, unknown. Okay, unique might not be the correct keyword. So let's remove it. Let's not worry about it. It's not a big deal for us. Enter. Great. It is saying that I have created a DB database, migrate this file and app modules, models this. Great. So let's open these files. First is this and second is this. This one is just a simple empty quiz model. It's a class which will help us to connect this model with our database. That's it. You don't have to worry about it right now. This is database. Okay. Now it has by default we wrote only title and description, but it has added timestamp also. This has not created the database. It is just a temporary file that has been created. It is a migration file. It has not been migrated yet. This is like saying that I know that I have to create this table and this is the outline of the table, like what is the name, its title and description. But I haven't created and finalized that this will be part of the database. So to make it final, what I will have to do is I'll have to write Rails generate Rails DB migrate. Okay. So what it does is this will, whatever files are there in this migrate folder, all these files will get added on top of one another and a final database will be created. That database might look something like this. Not technically, visually, but the resultant will be something like this. Okay. Now there's one more interesting thing. You see, the command that we gave was Rails generate model, which basically means that we are creating a new model. So it automatically used create word and quiz was the model name. So it automatically used quizzes. Along with that, it used the timestamp 2024, which is this year, 09, this month, 15th, September 15th is the date, 14, 56, 42, 14th is the hour, 56 is the minute, 42 is the second. So this is a unique timestamp that it generates and it has a fixed format along with it. So if you want to create if you don't want to use any generators and want to create this on your own, you'll have to create it like this, but that's not the best way actually in Rails framework. Rails DB migrate. Now after this migration, we have this schema file. This is the final database. Okay. Now this is responsible for communicating with the models and everything beyond that. Okay. It has a title, it has a description. By default, it will have an ID, created it and updated it. Okay. Wait, by default, it should have an ID. Maybe I'm getting confused with some other form of database. So it doesn't have an ID. So let's do one thing. Rails DB drop, delete it. Let's not worry about it. Okay. Let's actually no, it was correct. It was my confusion. I got confused. It is not visible there. DB. I got confused. It's just that I haven't coded in this Rails framework for a month and that's why I got confused of it. Rails DB create. It will create the database for us. Then let's use that same command, which is Rails G, generate model, quiz, title text, description text. Great. Now let's migrate this. The name quiz is either already used in your application or reserved in this. Yes, this model already exists, so I will have to delete this model and now I can use it. Now Rails DB migrate clear. We have this database, schema is ready. Now what I will teach you is something different, which is we can use Rails console to run Rails related code, but especially we use Rails console. It's a terminal where we can write Ruby related code, Rails related code that helps us mainly in communicating with the database. So let's do that. Rails console, console, or you can just write Rails C. Okay, it will open up the console. Quiz dot attribute method patterns attribute. Let's reload. Okay, reload doesn't work like this. Let's exit. To exit this, you can use Control Z. So it will exit this. Rails C. Let's start this again. Now I'll add one quiz. So I'll use quiz, which is our model name. Remember, model name, not the table name. Table name will be multiple. We don't have to worry about it. We are adding one record right now. So we will have to use quiz. Okay. So let's use quiz dot create. I want to create a quiz. Okay. What does it have? It should have a title and a description. Let's start title. And the value of that title is a string, which will be test title. Okay. And it will have a description, test description. And let's press enter. We got the entire transaction. You can see it was the entire transaction. It began the transaction here, 0.2 milliseconds. At 0.2 milliseconds, it started the transaction. It ran this query. So basically, Postgres is equivalent to SQL also. So you can understand this. Insert into quizzes table with the title and description created and updated at timestamp. This was successful. So it committed the entire transaction. This entire task took 0.8 milliseconds. It's nice to know these things. Okay. It's a really good practice to know these things. So entire transaction, which was really easy transaction, it took 0.8 milliseconds. Okay. At best, really complicated transactions. No, not really complicated. Average types of transaction take at max 10 millisecond in production. Okay. That's a number which you know it's good. Now this is the entire model, entire row for a particular item. It has a unique ID 1 by default. As I mentioned, I got confused that ID was not there, but Rails do add ID on its own. Title, which we added, description, which we added, created a timestamp. This is the entire timestamp. Updated timestamp. It has not been updated yet. So this, okay. Now I can use some other things. I can update this, for example, quiz. Now if I want to update this, I'll have to find this first. So find, if I write one, if I'm using find, I'll have to mention the ID only. Okay. So one. And I got the item. Great. Dot update In that, I can write description, sorry, not the updated description. Enter. It has updated it. Let's updated description is part of this new framework. Okay. So this is a very basic console that you can use to interact with the database. This has been saved in the database. Okay. So yeah, exit, clear. So based on this approach, I will reset this actually. Rails C. I can write quiz.all, which will give me all the records. There is only one record, so it will give me this. I want to delete this. So I'll write quiz.find. First, I'll have to find it. One dot delete. It should work. And it got destroyed. Great. So I can write again quiz.all. And we can see it's an empty array. It doesn't have anything. Great. I'll exit this once again just so that the screen is a bit clear. Rails console. Now, I will add 3 quizzes. So let's add 3 quizzes. Quiz.create. I'll mention title quiz1, comma, lorem ipsum long text for quiz1. That's it. I don't want to go in depth of it. Enter. There was some syntax error. Yes, I have not written description here. So let's go to this and write description. Enter, and it has been added. Now you see the ID is 2 because we did create the one ID first item, but we deleted it. So the ID will still remain there. The first one cannot be used right now. It will start with second, okay, which is fine. Let's start with second one, but I'll change this to 2 and 2, and the quiz 2 has been added. Let's change this to 3 and 3. Great. Now if I write quiz, let's clear this so that you can see this. Rails C. If I write quiz.all, what should happen? All 3 records that I've added recently should be visible. So quiz.all, you can see 3 records. First one, this. Second one, this. Third one, this. Now in this, you can see this quiz word. This quiz word is coming from our model. Okay. So basically, if I write somewhere quiz.id, I can access it. Quiz.title, I can access it. Quiz.description, I can access this. Okay. Remember this thing. Okay. So this is the very basic setup that we have done. Let's stop this, clear. Now what I want to do is, I want to show, let me check the time actually. Okay. So I want to show all these 3 quizzes on home page. Okay. Not focusing on the UI. I just want to show them. So let's see. What I will do is I'll go to models, quiz, I'll go to controllers. So if you remember the MVC architecture, I'm showing it to you again because I took a really long break in between. From browser, we'll go to home page. From home page, it will interact with the model. In this case, it is a quiz model. We want to show all the 3 quizzes on home page. So that information, we'll have to capture that in controller. Controller will interact with the model to get all the quizzes. Okay. And then it will get passed to view and we'll show it to browser. So let's start. So let's create a controller. Okay. Quiz controller is already there. Let's try to, okay, let me check view. We have home view. So I'll go to home only. Okay. In this, what I'll do is I'll create a variable, instance variable called quizzes. And in this, I'll write quiz.all. Remember, we use the same thing in our console. So whatever you write in console, it's almost 99% same what you will write in controller also. Okay, so quiz.all. Now this is a variable and it is part of controller. Great. If it is part of controller, can I use it in view? Yes, view can access directly controller. So view can access this quizzes part. Let's do that. And it will show it in browser. So let's do that. Let's go to home. Now I already know that there are 3 quizzes. So I'll have to iterate over them. So for that, I'll start the embedded Ruby code. And I'll write @quizzes. This is the variable that I'm using. @quizzes dot for each or dot each. Dot for each dot each quiz. Okay. So basically it's similar to for loop for each quiz item. Okay. In Ruby on Rails. In Ruby, if you don't know about this, do watch out my 2 hour long video in Ruby programming language. It will clear all your doubts related to how Ruby works. Okay. So it's a 2 hour long video, but it's really great. Now in this, I can write, let's say HTML. I'm just thinking actually because this needs to close here and we need to write and let's start with uh, maybe just a simple p tag quiz. Now I have to use a variable here, which variable is not part of HTML, it's part of Ruby. So I'll have to use embedded Ruby again, but I want to render this on page. So I have already explained you this in past that if you want to render something on the page, you will have to use equals to. If you don't want to render anything on the page, you don't have to use equals to. And here I can use quiz dot title. I think I'm getting a bit confused somewhere, but let's do it. I'm not worried about this a lot because if there is any error, we'll navigate through that and fix it. bin/dev to start the server. Let's restart. And we can see quiz 1, quiz 2, quiz 3. Okay, so that was the name of our quizzes. Let's see description also. For me, at least for me, I don't know about anyone else. Coding is like mathematics. If I do it on daily basis, it automatically becomes really great for me. But if I take really long break, I do get some time in getting started again. So description, there is some mistake. Okay, it says that undefined method description. So maybe I have written it incorrectly. DESCRIPPIN. Okay, I think I did not write R last time. And we can see this. Now, if we want to modify this, make this UI a bit better, we can do that. For example, I can wrap this in a div and cut this from here, paste it here. Class border 1. I think we don't need to write border 1, rounded border black, padding 4, and we can see, but the border is not visible. Maybe I need to write border actually. This is basic HTML CSS that I'm using, Tailwind CSS that I'm using, nothing is special. Okay, but you can see we can show the basic UI here. Now we just have to build up on this in a really good way. Okay, so this is the basic thing that I taught you, how you can create a model using generator. You don't need to remember anything. You have to start with Rails generator and read out things. That's the best way to do. If this video is of 30 hours, I would recommend you to give another 30 to understand various types of generators, at least in terms of models and controllers, these two things. Obviously in this video series will understand those things, but that's what I'm trying to convey. So that's one. Using generator, you get a file. That file is not responsible for creating the database yet. You will have to migrate it. So you will have to use Rails DB migrate to migrate that file. Once you have migrated that, you will have a final schema. This entire thing that we saw in this is the schema that we have. Okay. So you will see that in terms of code. Once that schema is there, now you can communicate with quiz model, because along with schema, you get this quiz model also. You can communicate with quiz model via MVC framework. Okay. So I've closed that file. Okay. This is the database, which is the schema.db file. This is quiz.rb file inside model folder. This is the controller, home controller file that we have. This was communicating with the model using quiz.all. Let's see that. Quiz.all. Quiz is the model. All is the query. You can write it in any way. Whatever result we got, we saved it in quizzes. Now that quizzes as a variable can be used in view. So we went to a particular view and we started using that view. Okay. And finally, it was getting visible in the browser. This is the entire MVC architecture, how models work, how controllers work, and everything around that. And I also explained you about Rails console. Try it out, various things in that. Don't be afraid of trying out things. Okay. So that's it for this video. I'll see you in next video. Do comment and like and share this video. It does help a lot. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.